This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Welcome, Alphas. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show for you today. Our guest is the Honorable Patrick J. Murphy, the first Iraq war veteran who was elected to serve in Congress, who went on to serve as the 32nd Undersecretary of the Army. Among other things, he now works with Hiring Our Heroes, an organization that the American Legion often partners with to assist service members who are transitioning out of the military and into the civilian career fields. Well, I wish I had that a while ago. More than 80,000 veterans, by the way, 80,000 of them since 2024. It's pretty impressive.
And we are about to name them all.
Let's go. Joe, we'll start with you.
Adam Adamson, Private, Army.
Okay. We've actually got some more important stuff to talk about, like the wildfires in California. Have you guys heard about this right now?
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, this stuff is really, really, really scary. I think that having watched some of the videos and people trying to get their animals out and people, it's just a horrifying thing. It so transcends no matter what you think about how much people make that live in that area. When you lose your home, and it doesn't matter if you've got no place to go, your whole life is upside down. And if you lost everything that you've gained, your pictures, your everything that you own, that's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, but like having just like a day's notice, like all of a sudden just blowing up like out of nowhere, and then this is happening. You're evacuating right now. One, are you even going to be able to get out safely? I could only imagine the traffic and the congestion. And there's 100% people that have gotten caught in that. The fires come and lost their lives, in that way. And then there's, what am I going to be able to take? It's that classic question of your house is burning down. Like, what are the things that you grab and save? And then you don't know. I just talked to my buddy, Waco Hoover, who had to evacuate. He's very fortunate that, and he works with Be the One and also co-founder of MCON, just does great work. And they had to leave. They went to Arizona. They came back to a house that was still standing. It's an absolute blessing because thousands of people did not have that experience.
Yeah. I mean, I've got several friends in that area who've not been so lucky, and all of my thoughts and prayers are with everybody in that area. And, coming on the heels of all the tragic stuff that happened in, the Asheville, North Carolina area, and hearing about the tremendous efforts by the American Legion folks up in that area. And then the incredible story that's coming out of California right now with the Palisades Post 283, and the fact that their post is miraculously still standing right now. And Hollywood Post 43, for all of the Legionnaires out there and all you guys and all your tremendous efforts in keeping folks safe and trying to help out for those folks and offering shelter and those in need. Keep up your efforts. Let us know what you need. And for those of you who are struggling, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here and we're all one big family and one team. So you're with us and you're in our thoughts and prayers.
And it's beautiful though that there are these pockets of things that have survived. The Palisades Post 283 is one of those. I mean, in the story of Waco, I mean that kind of stuff. It's little tiny beacons of hope in such an awful situation that I think that we're going to be seeing and maybe even feeling the ramifications of for years. It's wild to think that you can live in the United States and sometimes a wildfire just happens and there's nothing that anybody can do. It's terrifying.
Well, the scale and the magnitude of it, and I saw it, just kind of ticking up, and I don't even know what it's ultimately at, but I know it went from, a couple hundred acres are on fire to, I think the last thing I saw was 25,000 acres have been burned, like square miles. And it's hard to kind of comprehend because you think, how is that even possible? How is it possible that a fire could consume that much and go that much with modern technology and all the preventative, measures and emergency response that we have in place. And not to really dive too far into that, but that needs to critically be looked at. And, that the fact that that could happen is, can you prevent everything, and anything? But it sure seems like some critical systems failed for something of that magnitude and scale to take place, which is just sad.
Yeah. Well, I think that this is something that, as veterans, we need to try to check on your people, try to see if there's anything that we can, be a part of a solution here to try and help, or at least be there to have a conversation, to be a heart resource, if nothing else. And of course, we're going to have, more information in the show notes. But keep these people, in your hearts, because this is a hard thing. Like I can't even make a joke here. There's no jokes to make. This is just really bad. I mean, this is the largest fire that we've ever seen, right? I don't think that there's ever been one like this. This is like, I think somebody said it's 5 times or more bigger than the Chicago fire. I mean, outside of the raising of Atlanta, I don't think there's been anything like this ever. So
yeah, and there's a lot of churches, that are doing things too. And
Yeah.
I've seen already some support and fundraisers and things. So there's people that are on the ground that are organizing. Veterans have a crucial role to play in that, just because of crisis management and natural disasters and things like that. It's kind of in our blood to show up and support. And so I think that's what you're seeing from the Legion posts that are there, kind of helping to lead the charge. Then the other thing is kind of what we talked about, like, what can you do? Like, you have friends and family out there, just checking on them to see if they're okay. From there, it'll just naturally evolve. They'll either tell you what their needs are and what the situation is, or they'll just, kind of the responses I got were just, hey, thanks for checking in. We feel so supported with all the love and the people that have reached out. And sometimes that's the most meaningful thing that we can do, just letting people know that they're not alone during the hard, challenging time.
Yep, don't forget, we got NEF grants available for the Legion and auxiliary members as well, so you're not alone.
We love you. Alphas, please stick around. We'll be back with Patrick Murphy right after the break.
The American Legion is raising awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide by offering hope, camaraderie, and support.
Be the one to help end veteran suicide.
Be the one to save one veteran.
Be the one to ask a veteran in your life how they're doing.
Be the one to reach out when a veteran is struggling.
Go to betheone.org and help the American Legion end veteran suicide.
Will you be the one?
Today, we're joined by former Congressman and Undersecretary of the Army, Patrick J. Murphy. Patrick, welcome to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Hey, it's great being on with you guys. Thanks so much. As a Legionnaire, it's especially an honor to be with all of you.
Hey, thanks, Patrick. Thank you for your service and your civil service as well. I'm very familiar with your political career, of course, and as I believe most Americans are. But I was really surprised to discover, like, going back in your youth, that you're from Philly originally.
That's right.
That's so awesome. Both my stepkids are from there. My eldest son went to Franklintown and then Drexel, and then my youngest went to Little Flower and then Temple for a time. So
there you go. They're in the Philadelphia Catholic League then. Yeah, I grew up I call it the row house mentality. I grew up in a row house. We shared a step with, our next door neighbor, but that means you just take care of people on your left and the right, which was a great segue, to join the Army. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the Philadelphia Catholic League. My 2 kids are in high school. They're part of the Catholic League. They go to Calwell Egan Catholic High School, and we love it.
yeah. So why'd you choose the Army? What brought you into the military?
It's interesting. I joined at 19, and my dad was enlisted in the Navy. My grandfather was in the Navy, enlisted, World War II Pacific. And I always had this great respect for the military. But when I found out about ROTC, and how about 12%, of the soldiers in our Army were officers, but you can get it 3 ways: through ROTC, through West Point, or through OCS. I jumped at the chance to compete against other students from Harvard, Notre Dame, et cetera, and found out I was pretty good at it. And I just loved it. I mean, I loved my time in the military. It took me about 3 years to earn my commission, but once I was commissioned, I said when I was 19, I said I want to be an airborne ranger with the 82nd Airborne Division, and it took me almost 10 years to get there, to become a paratrooper with the 82nd. But I had been at Airborne Air Assault School, but to me, it changed my life for the better. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for our U.S. military.
That's awesome. I think everybody in the military at some point thinks if I was elected, I'd get in there and I'd just fix everything. Like it's that simple. But and we know it's just not. It's not that simple. Red tape isn't made of tape at all. It's actually some alien technology that we got from Area 51 that regenerates and has a mind of its own, and that mind is petty. So how do you navigate those challenges, and how did that change as you learned the ropes? Did you go into it with that idealistic mindset yourself a little bit?
I did. Listen, I wasn't a political science major. My parents weren't overly political. But to me, when I was in the invasion of Iraq with the 82nd Airborne Division, I lost 19 men in my unit. And I did realize that, at that point early on, we had about a 16% unemployment rate with our veterans. So for me, it was about focusing like a bulldog on a bone when I had that opportunity to serve in the U.S. Congress as the first and only Iraq War veteran, my first term, to make it better for my brother and sister veterans, right? And so that's why I partnered in co-authoring the post 9/11 GI Bill. And right now, there's about 800,000 young Americans using, that post 9/11 GI Bill. Like we're very proud of it, right? So to me, that was incredibly important. But to your point, listen, you can't take things personal. You understand that if you have empathy and realize that people have different perspectives, different beliefs, it's just like serving in the military, though, right? You find common ground. You can always focus on a division, but that's not a key anywhere, right? You focus on what you can do together, and 1+1 = 3 if you work the right way.
Outstanding.
Well, Patrick, you talked a little bit about your transition, some of the employment statistics and things that you have done, within Congress to be able to help support that. Another statistic, we know that 200,000 troops transition out of the military each year, and hiring our heroes has helped 80,000 of them in 2024 alone. Can you talk a little bit about your work with hiring heroes, and what do you see as the biggest challenge for transitioning service members today?
Yeah, listen, I work with great Americans that are part of the, Hiring Heroes initiative. It's through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. We do about 90 events a year, about 50 live, 40, virtual. But as you mentioned, we help 80,000 troops a year of the 200,000, that transition from active service. I would say good things and bad things. One, the good thing is that unemployment rate is down at 2.8%. It's lower than the average for civilians. That's positive because the best you can do is get a job. But let me tell you some bad news. Bad news is with military spouses, 24% unemployment, 24%. And again, these are spouses that are looking for work and they can't find it, right? And most American families, are dual income families. So we got to do a better job taking care of military families, number one. Number two, bad news. And again, I'm a positive person, optimistic by nature, but this is my continuing public service and it's giving back through the Chamber of Commerce. But right now, the majority of veterans, when you become a veteran, when you transition off of active service, and active service doesn't just mean active duty, it means National Guard reservists as well, you will actually, on average, make less money than you did in the military, right? So, even though it's public service, serving in the military, when they go back in the private sector, a lot of times, they're not making as much money. They're paying higher tax rates, some other things. So, I just think as a nation, we don't need a whole of government approach. We need a whole of nation approach, and that's what we're getting after, like a bulldog on a bone.
Yeah. Patrick, you seem so well versed in so many things, and most importantly, advocating for veterans issues and things like that. And the one thing I found during my research as well was the Taking the Hill Productions that you founded. I produce and host a television show on PBS called After Action, which focuses on veteran issues as well. And I've been in the media, in the military and out of the military for over 27 years. And so this was definitely something that I keyed in on. I think it's tremendous what you're doing there. Can you talk to me a little bit about the importance of Taking the Hill Productions, why you decided to found it, what's the key purpose of it, why is it important, and share a little bit about the genesis?
Yeah, listen, when I first ran for Congress, and I won, I was one of the least wealthy members of Congress, right? But I had to raise millions of dollars to get on the Philadelphia media market. We had to spend about $1 million a week to get what's called 700 points. And, for those who don't understand, there's like over 200 media markets in the country. So the fourth most expensive one was Philadelphia. So I learned a lot about, cutting commercials and putting it out there and making, everything count. But I saw, I would door knock and go to bus stops and train stations. But it wasn't until I was on TV running for office when people actually took me seriously, right? I mean, they took me seriously that, they took my, handshake and, I introduced myself. I'm Iraq Patch Murphy. I'm an Iraq War veteran, et cetera. But I will tell you, when they saw you on TV, it became real to them, and it made a difference. The media and television, it can be a force multiplier, right? If you use it for the right reasons. And so I'm passionate about telling stories of my brothers to veteran and also our community heroes. So I got my first Emmy Award, talking about the hero nurses of COVID up in New York City. So we did a documentary there for NBC. As you know, I do a ton of stuff with Fox News and Fox Business. We just launched a new podcast called Warrior Money on Yahoo Finance. So please check it out and subscribe. But like that's why I appreciate when you guys reach out to me and they come on your show. Like what you do is incredibly important. It's important to tell our stories. We cannot outsource this to Hollywood. We can't outsource this to folks that don't understand, what we've all gone through. You and I, all of us, who've worn the cloth of our country, for my generation, our generation of Iraq, Afghanistan veterans, we know what it's like to kneel in front of a battlefield cross. We know what it's like to wash out a gun truck because it's blood of our brothers, that, got shot at or got, unfortunately, in a roadside bomb, which killed the majority of our Americans, in places like Iraq and Baghdad, where I was. So for me, I want to tell the stories of these incredible Americans that gave so much during a defining moment of our country's history. And when they came home, they didn't just sit, in their basement, drinking beer and watching television. They are civic assets. They're more likely to start a small business. They're more likely to vote no matter what their political persuasion. They're more likely to elect or be pastors in their churches. So for me, I am passionate about telling the stories of these great American veterans. We need to do a better job at it. We need to amplify each other. And that's why I ask people to follow me on social media at Patrick Murphy PA. Follow us on that Yahoo, the Warrior Money podcast on Yahoo, or tune in when we're on Fox News or Fox Business, talking about what we need to do to move our country in the right direction.
I think that having that heart to continue to serve afterwards is, 20 years outside of Fallujah for me. And like you, the worst thing that happened to me didn't happen to me at all. And so I thank you so much for your continued service with that. And so I think moving forward, how best do you see organizations like the American Legion tying into this? How do we evolve to best support veterans and their families in the current landscape? Are there things that we should be, like preparing our veterans for right now as the Legion?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the Legion has done a phenomenal job, like night and day. You guys have been getting after it.
Yeah.
I was at the convention in New Orleans last year. The Be the One campaign. Like, listen, it's like anything else. If you try to do everything for everyone, you're going to get nothing done, right? But you got to be focused on 2-3 things and do it really, really well. And I think you're all doing a phenomenal job at amplifying the stories of our brothers and sisters that are getting after it. They're doing the right thing, but also not shying away on the negative stuff, right? I mean, I'm super positive about entrepreneurship and that, I was an Army veteran that started Nike, Walmart, Comcast, FedEx, Enterprise Car Rental, GoDaddy, all these great companies. But I'm also like real quick to be like, hey, man, we lost 125,000 troops since 9/11 to suicide. We got to live by that ethic that we all know about, man. That no one left behind. We're leaving too many of our brothers and sisters behind. They are dying in the sea of goodwill. So it's about amplifying stories. It's about synergies. The American Legion is working hand in glove with people like Student Veterans of America and other veteran nonprofits. Things like the Face the Fight initiative on veteran suicide. I know the American Legion's doing, through the Be the One stuff, like doing a great job and really amplifying, even voices within the current military, not just veterans. And I think that's a sea change on what it was in the past. I get it, man. When I first joined the Army in 1993, and I was a young, cadet for 3 years. It was like we gave the media folks a Heisman. We didn't want to touch the media, right? And there's like, it was always about, hey man, there's no I in team. But you know what there is in team? There's an ME. So you better talk about what you've done, and more importantly, what you're going to do for other people, and talk about not necessarily yourself, but talk about your teammates who are kicking ass and taking names. And we cannot outsource that. We got to do a better job, and that's why I love partnering with all of you and anything else more that we can do together.
Well, I love that, Patrick, and man, you're getting me fired up. You sure you don't want to go back into office?
Well, listen, man, I was independent my whole life, man. My mom and dad they had a mixed marriage. One was a Democrat, one was a Republican. Me and my ex-wife, she was a Republican, and I was a Democrat, conservative Democrat. Like, to me, it's a rally about the person and about folks who are going to move the ball forward.
Yeah.
I do not like it. It pisses me off. It gives me a case of the ass when I see veterans denigrate other veterans, their military service, or, well, they're not qualified. Hey, let me tell you something. If you picked up an M4 assault rifle like I did, and you did what we did in places like Baghdad, Iraq, or Tuzla, Bosnia, or other places where I served, I will tell you that you were doing God's work and you served in the company heroes. And, I could grab an 18-year-old paratrooper and say, hey, man, I need you to go fly a space shuttle next week. That young American paratrooper, that barrel-chested American paratrooper, he might get duct tape, but he's going to find a way to fly the
Yeah.
space shuttle. But that's what we need to do, and investing, in each other to get this country moving back in the right direction.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Your message is as relevant and timely as ever, and it's also very much needed right now. And look, you've achieved so much, across diverse fields: military, government, venture capital, media. We have a new administration coming in, so I thought it would be kind of cool, given your past experiences, if you give us a little bit of insight into what's going on for the next 100 days here. Can you share any insights into what's kind of going on behind the scenes, and maybe even tie it into how that might impact veterans, the broader military community, and even knowing that the Legion's own legislative agenda #1 priority is winning the war within this year?
Right. I would say this, and coming from Fox Business, Fox News, I have 5 colleagues that are joining the new administration. Right, 3 cabinet members. So I just talked to Doug Collins, who's been nominated obviously for the VA secretary, getting confirmed shortly, and he's a great American, Iraq War veteran. Served in the Navy and Air Force. Just a great leader. Pete Hegseth, Sean Duffy, Morgan over in State Department, Tammy Bruce. These are people who love their country, right? And even the folks that are going in, if I don't agree with them necessarily politically, I know where their heart is. And their heart is, for America. And I think we need to get back into that. Unless they did something super egregious or crazy, like
Yeah.
Give them a chance to serve. They're serving at the pleasure of the President of the United States, but they all take the oath that we took as soldiers, as troops. That is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, right? And so let's get it moving. Let's get folks serving, and let's make sure that we're doing what's necessary to keep America #1, because we have a lot of adversaries out there. You talked about the enemy. We got to make sure that these young men and women do not have a fair fight, that we need to give them the technical and tactical advantage over enemies, because they want to hurt American families, and we need to make sure that they win these away games when we send them in harm's way.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us today. We know you're tremendously busy and you've got a jam, but I want to thank you so much. We deeply appreciate you carving out some time for us. And Alphas, be sure to visit patrickmurphy.com to see all the great things that he's getting into today on our behalf as veterans.
Patrick J. Murphy.
Patrick J. Murphy, yeah.
Hey, man, I'm going to, you know what? This is the second time today I've got website addresses wrong. Patrick J. Murphy. Let's say that at patrickjmurphy.com.
Yep.
That's where you're going to find his social media handles as well. Be sure to stalk him, because there's some great information out there, and you want to make sure that you don't miss a thing.
Stalk him, but keep it legal.
Yeah.
Keep it legal. Before we sign off, Patrick, is there anything that you want to share?
Follow him.
Yeah, I would say use your phones, use social media as a force multiplier. Don't spend too much time on it, but connect with your brothers and sister veterans before you need their help. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Connect with me, man. I'm Patrick J. Murphy, right? Connect with me. You don't need to send me a special note. Just ask connect and I'll connect. And then amplify the stories of our brothers and sisters. And then last but not least, remember your network is your net worth, right? So, connect with folks, try to amplify them, learn about them, and try and get 1% better every day. Because that's what, God gave us an incredible blessing to live in the United States of America. But it's our duty to turn over the next generation better than how we found it. And there's a lot of work we got to do, but if we get after it every single day, we'll be in good shape. God bless you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Bless you. Alpha,
Right.
stick around for some scuttlebutt after the break.
Veterans,
defense,
youth,
and Americanism.
The American Legion was built by veterans to help veterans.
Make the transition back to civilian life.
Receive the health care they earned and deserve.
Face mental health and well-being challenges. Understand and use government benefits available to them, including the GI Bill. Pursue rewarding careers after discharge. Keep a roof overhead. Remember and honor those who came before us, especially those who made the ultimate sacrifice.
National security has been the guiding principles of the American Legion since its founding.
Ensuring that members of the United States Armed Forces are supported on the battlefield, in Washington, and at home, fighting for adequate defense funding, demanding a full accountability of all POW and MIAs.
the mentorship of youth follows two main paths: promoting responsible citizenship through competitive and educational programs, operating and supporting national programs and competitions such as American Legion Baseball, Boys State and Boys Nation, oratorical competition, junior shooting sports, youth cadet law enforcement, Boy Scouts, local and regional youth programs, and junior ROTC, providing a square deal for every child no matter his or her circumstances through such programs as temporary financial assistance, the Child Welfare Foundation, college scholarships, and more.
Americanism is a responsibility the American Legion upholds to promote responsibility through respect for our nation's flag, active participation in our nation's democracy, promotion of U.S. citizenship and naturalization, teaching young people patriotic values,
active, effective community service, and disaster relief.
We are veterans strengthening America. We are the American Legion.
Okay, Alphas, we hope you had a great break. Now it's time for some scuttlebutt.
Happy 110th birthday, Coast Guard.
Coasties!
For those of you who didn't know, the Coast Guard was established on January 28, 1915 by President Woodrow Wilson.
I remember him.
Do you remember him?
I do.
Yeah. After merging the life-saving service and the revenue cutter service to better enforce federal laws, trade, prevent smuggling. I know you're a big smuggler, Joe.
Big smuggler, yeah.
And to provide domestic life-saving sea-based missions, which I know Adam needs. But anyway, to get a better sense of why Coasties serve today and how they feel about their service currently, I went down the Reddit rabbit hole, as you guys know I love to do. And I pulled down some personal anecdotes by Coasties, and I wanted to share them with you all, my fellow Alphas, and to share a few with you here. So at Blevin78 shared, quote, "I think what really makes the Coast Guard great is that we find ourselves at the intersection between the military, law enforcement, and disaster relief. You could go a whole career without a single billet that was the same as the last. And we do that stuff every day. There isn't a, quote, peacetime for us." That's pretty neat. Yeah. This handle's great. At Bucky Cop. I kind of want to know what this guy's deal is. Bucky Cop said, "I'll be in until they tell me I have to leave." I want to see what he looks like when they have to. The insurance, the stability, the opportunities for change and betterment, all unmatched. Some days are a challenge, but I love it. With an exclamation at the end. At Big Bucket 621. I wonder what Big Bucket refers to. Big Bucket could go many ways.
Maybe he's got a big dump truck.
Or just a big red bucket.
Yeah.
Big old
Or a
head.
honey
I
bucket.
got a big old head, 621.
Big Bucket could be a big fat head. Big Bucket 621 commented, "It's the adventure for me. I have a degree and worked in the civilian world for a number of years before enlisting. I actually love my job. I've never had such a job satisfaction in my life before. I also know I can make a difference. I feel like I actually influence my non-rates and subordinates. Even on my worst days of work or underway, it still feels like I was able to accomplish something. I talk to my friends in other branches after hearing what I tell them, all of them wish they could do it all over again, and I do too in the Coast Guard."
I'm starting to think I joined the wrong branch, y'all.
No, you did, maybe. At 13 Ubba said, "Every so often I get burnt out and jaded in my job, and I think about getting out. But then I remember that I'll get paid for the rest of my life, and if I just stick it out
There
a
you
bit
go.
longer, it also helps to know that I'll be PCSing every few years and will have a chance to change it up and what I'm doing. Yes, that makes a big difference."
That's a guy who's found what he needs to tell himself to keep going.
That's true.
I just
It's a
want to
mantra.
mention that we've got Bubba, Big Bucket, and Bucky Cop, all B's.
Yeah. Who picked these handles?
This was not intentional.
Mhm.
Strange. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't share some funny Reddit rabbit hole stories from Coast Guardsmen underway. Some of these are freaking hilarious that I came across from my deep
We'll
dive.
be the judge of that.
Well, prepare
Bitter
yourself.
judging.
It wouldn't be a Coast Guard birthday celebration if I didn't share some of these little gems. So, at Coast Guard Decky said, it was an awesome, relaxed underway Sunday. I had just finished my helm lookout 1200 to 1600 on the bridge and came down for some call of duty before my evening chow.
As one does.
Like any other young buck non-rate, I was gulping down a protein powder, animal stacks, and creatine like a maniac, and my farts were awful. I can't not. I popped out of the deck force berthing, which is a watertight door all the way forward of the 2010, which is 210 foot. I don't know what that means. This is Coast Guard talk. And headed down to the mess deck for some PB&J. Before re-entering the berthing area, I ripped a big one. You know. Oh my gosh. To keep it out of the berthing. That was really nice of you, my friend. A few moments later, I realized I had left my headphones on the mess deck and went back through the watertight berthing into the P-way. It smelled so bad. It was seriously the most, oh my God. It was seriously the most rancid fart smell ever. Standing in the middle of the stink cloud was the XO, very obviously smelling the same thing. He said, "Do you smell that?" It must be a sewage leak." I didn't say a word. I just hustled down the back and the mess deck and got my headphones. A few moments later, the DCs were piped to the main P-way to investigate the possible sewage leak. They wrapped the pipes and sprayed the bubbling stuff, looking for the leak. I never told a soul. God bless you, my friend. God bless you.
Oh my gosh.
Why are farts so? My son and I were just waiting for the girls to get ready this morning, and they're both in the bathroom. And my youngest daughter goes to the oldest daughter, "Ew, you just farted." She goes, "I'm in the bathroom. This is where we're supposed to do it." She goes, "You didn't have to do it in my face." Me and my son outside hearing the antics inside, just were dying laughing. It was just a
no
way to start the day. So hats off to Bubba keeping the confined sewage
the
leak to
stench was
himself.
real. That creatine fart. I'm telling
Yeah,
you.
it's bad. It feels different coming out. It's not a good situation.
It's more like a shart.
Hey,
yeah.
don't trust your fast on it.
Well, it's just, it's hot usually. It's like, it's bad. There's humidity, and it's hot. You're like, that's not good. That's a bad one. Don't come in here.
Here's another one. So at Beer and Burgers 4708 said, I reported in the middle of winter, first time being around snow in my life. Right when I got out of my car in Bravos, I proceeded to walk to the station door. I slipped and fell on my back. My XPO was a cool dude, and he just opened the door for me and said, "Hey, welcome, shipmate." So you're trying to do some snow angels. That was quite a welcoming. And finally, you guys, here's for all you coasties out there, my final little anecdote, the best one I could find. This little gem, this story of all stories, at Voice of Reason, joked, "I used to work as a Coast Guardsman. There's one rescue mission that sticks in my memory. A ship carrying a huge haul of industrial strength glue got into trouble just off the coast where I was stationed. The weather was the worst I'd seen it, and one of the containers of glue had fallen from a height and smashed into the hull, covering a number of crew members in glue and knocking them overboard. Luckily, they managed to cling to some nearby weather floats whilst the ship went down. But by the time we got to them, the glue that had covered them had set, and we couldn't detach them from the floats. After a long struggle, we eventually got them free, but it was the most difficult rescue I had ever been involved with. That was the mission that separated the men from the buoys."
Oh my gosh.
That's Voice of Resin, not Voice of Reason.
That we just got dad joked so hard. Phil, it's like a lump in my throat. Beautiful. Well done. Well done, Voice of Resin, you son of a gun. Oh my gosh. So another important day.
Happy birthday, Coasties.
Happy birthday, Coasties. So the other day, my wife and I were actually talking about how hot chocolate was made. And so it's actually really funny that we're bringing this up today, because I want to tell you guys the story of another important day this week. National Hot Chocolate Day is January 31st. In honor of that day, let me tell you about Navy veteran and engineer Charles Sanna, who didn't invent hot chocolate, but changed the way Americans make it. So for centuries, hot chocolate's got a long and storied history. But hot drinking chocolate was a beverage of the world's elite aristocrats. Cocoa was expensive, and the process of actually drinking chocolate was rather labor intensive. So Sanna changed this when he turned an excess of his company's coffee creamer into an invention that proved to be an overnight sensation. His first step came in 1950s when he developed a means of extending the shelf life of dehydrated, powdered, sweetened whole milk coffee creamers. He reduced the amount of oxygen in the packets, and that lasted then it lasted for years. I guess he saved the oxygen, put it in balloons, and gave it away to needy children. And this caught the attention of Army leaders who wanted the product for field use. The family company, Sanna Dairy Engineers, was contacted by the U.S. government to make powdered coffee creamer for American troops fighting in Korea. The contract stipulated a harsh penalty if they were undersupplied, so the company made an astounding surplus to ensure it met the requirements. In addition, none of the company's overstock could be used to fill future orders, compounding the surplus. The contract left Sanna with a huge overstock when the war ended in 1953, but the entrepreneurial spirit inside the former Navy engineer wouldn't let it go to waste. He began experimenting with the packets in his Wisconsin home, consulting the family cookbook, his own taste buds, and his children as product testers. And as we know, the only thing children don't lie about is food. So he even considered the source of the cow for its milk fat content. "I believe that it would make an excellent ingredient for a hot cup of cocoa," he told the New York Times in a later interview. "I consulted the family cookbook and determined the best proportions for creamer, sugar, cocoa, and vanilla. The lab promptly came with the finished product, and it was delightful." The product of the lab finish was called Brown Swiss, so named after a breed of cattle in Switzerland, though the milk came from a Wisconsin-grown Holsteins. Sanna marketed the new product to restaurants and airlines, but found there was a healthy consumer market after those same restaurants and airlines complained their customers were stealing the hot cocoa packets to use at home. Rude. So Sanna went back to the drawing board with his new customer base in mind. The use of his powdered creamer had a high butterfat content, which caused it to go bad, so he replaced the cream with a soluble, non-fat milk powder, and this switch made the product last longer on store shelves. The new instant cocoa mix, meant for mugs and home kitchens, was branded Swiss Miss in 1961 and could be made with just hot water. He died in 2019 at age 101, grateful that his creation was so beloved by so many people. Apparently, the secret to a long and healthy life is hot chocolate.
It's preservatives.
It's preservatives.
Sugar, vanilla, milk.
That sounds delightful. And we'll have notes for all that in the show notes, because we have show notes now.
Are there show notes?
We're adding show notes.
Did we establish that?
It was a long fight with Holly.
Well, Holly, get them show notes together.
Yeah.
All right. The 39th president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, died December 29th and was remembered during his funeral in Washington, D.C. on January 9th. In addition to being the leader of our country, Carter was many other things: a peanut farmer, a preacher, a professor, even a parole officer.
Wow, that alliteration is like unmatched. Peanut, preacher, professor, parole. Okay, sorry, carry on.
Great alliteration.
Is this epic rap battles of history?
But before any of that, Carter served as a U.S. Navy officer, most famously working with Admiral Hyman Rickover, the so-called father of the nuclear navy. Which brings us to the story of the Jimmy Carter of the time. Jimmy Carter saved a Canadian nuclear reactor after a meltdown, brought to us by our friends at military.com. In 1952, then Lieutenant Carter was being groomed as the engineering officer for the nuclear plant aboard the USS Seawolf, the Navy's second nuclear submarine, and was designing a training program for nuclear enlisted personnel. This meant that he was one of the few people who had access to the latest and greatest and top secret nuclear technology. So, when Canada's Chalk River Nuclear Research Facility experienced a power surge that damaged its reactor, Carter and his team were sent to help. Fuel rods at the research reactor experienced a partial meltdown after the power surge. It ruptured the reactor and flooded the facility's basement with radioactive water, rendering the reactor core unusable. In his 2015 autobiography, A Full Life, Reflections at 90, Carter described the incident and his preparations for repairing the reactor. They built an exact replica of the reactor, true to the last detail, except the actual nuclear material, on a nearby tennis court to practice and track their progress. Carter and his 22 other team members were separated into teams of 3 and lowered into the reactor for 90-second intervals to clean the site. It was estimated that a minute and a half was the maximum time humans could be exposed to the levels of radiation present in the area. It was still too much, especially by today's standards. We were fairly well instructed then on what nuclear power was, but for about 6 months after that, I had radioactivity in my urine, Carter told CNN in 2008. They let us probably 1,000 times more radiation than they would now. It was the early stages, and they didn't know. Well, it's good to know that even with that exposure to nuclear radiation, he was still able to live such a long and illustrious life.
Yeah, that's incredible. And he was active the whole time, like he was building homes.
I was thinking, like, to write your autobiography in your 90s. I'm thinking, like, I don't know if I could write my autobiography in my 40s. My brain is such mush. That's impressive. I'm impressed. No, I mean, seriously, I'm impressed. You know, and then to back all the way up to the first sentence, the 39th president. I remember do you guys remember in grade school where you had to try and list all the presidents by memory? Could you guys still do that?
That one. I don't know that we did that one.
I know the first one, and I know the last one. If you guys can fill in the rest, I'll lead the charge, and I'll put a pin in it.
George Washington to Bill Clinton.
Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Adams, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, Tyler, Ford, Taylor, Fillmore, Pierce Buchanan, Lincoln, Johnson, Grant, Hayes. I kind of taper off after that. I can't remember.
I'm gonna learn them. Hey. I'll be ready next time.
All right, Alphas, let's hear your memory bank. No, just kidding. But in all seriousness, thank you for your dedication to our country, President Carter. And you will be missed. We appreciate your service. You had a long and illustrious life, and we appreciate your dedication.
I can tell you what a Boy Scout is: trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent.
Well, clean is most important. Definitely want to be
To
clean.
me, yeah. I can put up with everything else as long as you wash your hands when you walk out of the bathroom.
Nobody wants that youthful body odor.
So I think 16.
Nobody wants Boy Stout.
Well, check out that military.com article all about Jimmy Carter and how he saved the Canadian nuclear reactor meltdown. It's pretty neat. All right, Alphas. Thanks for listening. You can subscribe to our podcast, our newsletter, and send us mail and guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. We'll see you next week.